Something I've been waiting for weeks is finally here, and I am so excited. So I've been testing, of course, the Sony A7 IV for over a month now, and I haven't really done a full review of it because of one simple reason: raw support. So raw support has been taking its time, well, at least for Adobe. But really, I wouldn't ever review anything without being able to see the full capacity in terms of how it can perform in my own workflow. So even if the Capture One support came a bit earlier, I really had to wait for this one to come. And someone sent me a message. Anyway, I did take some photos that I've been excited about, particularly this one that I'm gonna do a quick pixel peeping in front of you guys. And I really had to wait for this one because I shot this on a very foggy night. And if you've shot a lot of fog, especially in the city, it can be quite tricky to process if you're not shooting in RAW. And that's why I really waited for the RAW support for this one. So this is what I'm talking about. This is a cityscape I shot from the roof of our building. And it was a very foggy night. It was actually a very dramatic looking night. This was just after sunset, so you can still see a bit of the cast of the sun on the top part. But what really excited me was the soft glow of that fog on the bottom. And I was shooting with the A7 IV and the 70 to 200 f4 at f8, 30 seconds ISO 250, because I didn't really want to boost up my ISO, but I wanted to see if I can recover some more out of that foreground to use the fog for a bit of atmosphere, a bit of depth, a bit of drama, basically. So this is the raw file. I'm on Lightroom. I recently updated it to be able to access the raw file. So here, I always start first with switching to the profile. I prefer the Adobe landscape over the Sony landscape, which is just out of preference. So just to test out the raw file, I just want to see how much it can recover in terms of the shadows. And there we go. And it doesn't really bring out so much noise. So that's at 100%. And I want to tone down the whites. And of course, this isn't really the right process for post-processing, but I just really want to stretch out the raw file. And there. And if I were to do this properly, basically, I would bring up the shadows here, tone down the whites and the highlights, and just for the sake of creating the thumbnail for this video, crop it to 16 by 9. And there. And I actually want to boost the entire exposure a bit. Now, I do want to bring out a bit more brightness for the fog that I was talking about. So I'm going to do a radial tool right here, just to touch up on the area where I want to bring out the shadows. And to minimize the emergence of noise, I don't want to touch the shadows anymore actually. But since the visible area here is the fog, which is relatively brighter, that's why the slider I used is the highlight slider. But if you want to go a bit more, you can do the exposure slider, and that's obviously too much. So I think this is the right amount, and just fine tune the size of this one to fit. Maybe pull back just a bit. And there. Now, lastly, I just want to add a linear gradient because this edge is way too luminant, bright for me. So I want to make that just a bit darker, and that was too much. And really give it a nice gradient. So I'm gonna expand this and pull back. Then I will just fine tune my colors. And at first glance, I can really see that the color rendition on this one, the color science on this camera is just better. You know, it's much better. So I'm still yet to extract as much as I can out of this. And take a look at how I really boosted and stretched out this area, but there's not much noise. And amidst the fog, everything's in focus, everything's sharp. And there, I think that's pretty much my output for this one. Now, I did take a few more. Like this one, I shot a sequence of this bracketed because I know I'm gonna want to blend, but I just want to see how much I can extract out of a single raw file. This was shot at ISO 1000 at 30 seconds f7.1. Not really the best settings, but I was exposing for the foreground. But take a look at that. So the counterpart of this one that I'm gonna use actually is something I shot at f2.8 at ISO 250 and 30 or 20 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. And this is much lower in terms of ISO than I use in certain situations. I haven't quite wrapped my head around it yet, but I think this camera really performs so much better in low light. And I'm talking about this coming from the standpoint of the A7C and the A7 which I've also shot with in low light. Now, if you want to pixel peep this, I will post the link of this image. This is something I shot during a live stream for Sony Philippines. And I am giving you the underexposed one because I want you to be able to explore and stretch out the raw file to, just bring out more details just like this and see how much you can do out of this single raw file. So yeah, the link for that raw file will be on the description of this video. And let me know what you think. You can probably tag me on Instagram to show me what came out of your testing in terms of post-processing. Do keep in mind that you're going to need an updated Adobe Lightroom Classic or an updated Photoshop and Camera Raw to be able to work with the raw file that I just posted on the link below. And if you have any questions, any suggestions, any reactions, or whatever, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.